Welcome to LTTV at home for Friday the 13th of November. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Chairman Peter Tom, CEO Andrea Pinchen and Head Coach Steve Borthwick for joining me. I appreciate today's been somewhat of an emotional day for both supporters and everyone at Leicester Tigers. There is absolutely no disagreement with that, I would suggest, across the board. But what I want to do is have a chat about not only today's announcement, recent announcements, and look ahead to a season that does begin, crazily enough, in 7 days or 8 days from now. It feels like we only were just playing last season at this point. So, look, let's get down to the fun side of it, I guess you could call it, or at least the most enjoyable side of it for those who want to see tonight's episode. And I'll start with you, Peter Tom. Mr. Chairman, obviously today, a man who's served more than 23 years at the club leaves. It's a sad news day for Leicester Tigers and Leicester Tigers staff. I want to ask you first and foremost about the contribution of Jordan Murphy to Leicester Tigers.
Well, I mean, I remember Geordie coming as a very young man, and his contribution is particularly on the field has been absolutely outstanding. He's won, he's part of the team that won all the trophies in the early part of this century and everything else, and he's just been absolutely outstanding. And I always felt his career would have even been even more so if he hadn't had that awful leg break when he was playing for Ireland. And he's been outstanding.
And I mean, from your point as well, and I'm pointing towards your words today in the announcement, you acknowledged his family too. And I think sometimes people maybe underestimate the contribution families have to make to the career of somebody at a club.
Oh no, absolutely. And his wife's a massive supporter of him, and his two children, and his family back home in Ireland. And in my other world, so I've had some dealings with his brother with some different stuff to do with quarrying in Ireland. So no, I mean, for all of us, we need not every. Today has been a horrible day for us, but you need the support of your family behind you, and I'm disappointed we're not able to give Geordie, the full acknowledgement he deserves in front of a 26,000 crowd at, the Mattielli Woods Welford Road Stadium.
So, Andrea, I'll jump to you, and I'm conscious of keeping the head coach waiting, but I will jump to you first. So, I want to look back, I guess, recently, or more recently, if you will, on Jordan, because he has been at the forefront of what's been a very difficult time for Director of Rugby's and coaches around the world through the COVID-19 pandemic, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. I mean, it's who would have thought back in March that we'd still be where we are with a 3-week off-season, pre-season, call it what you will, gearing back up for a new season, and then still not having supporters in stadium. So there's been an awful lot of stuff to work through with regards to the pandemic, and Jordan's been front and centre of that, working. Yes, for the team and for the playing side, but also overall to try and help get the club through this. And as we said right at the onset, this has been about getting the club through a period of time, getting Leicester Tigers to survive, and then pushing on and progressing forward. So yeah, he's been an enormous part of that.
So, Steve, you obviously came up against Jordan, I would imagine, internationally as well as obviously domestically for a long time. You came together on July 1st this year. I want to know from you around, obviously he was the off-field man, you were the on-field man, if we're talking in layman's terms, what his impact or what support he gave you when you first arrived to the club.
Well, firstly, I think from the first day I arrived at the club, incredibly supportive of me and what I was trying to do, what I was trying to bring to the club. I think he gave great insight to personal experience of coaching a team, personal experience of the club. And I think that one thing that stood out as soon as you meet Jordan Murphy is the passion that he has for Leicester Tigers. It exudes from him. And I think then, as Andrea alluded to there, it's been challenging times for everybody around the world this last period of time, and for professional sports clubs with no spectators, with uncertainty about when they're playing, and then playing lots of games in short periods of time. There's been lots of different challenges, particularly from an off-field perspective, and that's where Jordan has been focused and really supporting the team's development in trying to ensure that those off-the-field matters are the challenges are minimised and we come through them as well as we possibly can.
Steve, I'll stay with you in the first instance, because one of the biggest questions, or the biggest question people will have, is what impact today's announcement or the decision has on the on-field program and preparation, because you do, to be blunt, start a season in 1 week from now.
So essentially right from July the 1st, the responsibilities have been very much split between on-field and off-field, and we discussed that publicly. The preparations for the start of the season clearly not been ideal by the fact that we have been locked out the training ground due to the COVID situation from last week, and we'll be re-entering the ground next week for the build-up into the first league game. But that's a situation that's been handled professionally, thoroughly, in the utmost care to protect the players, all the staff of the club, their families and the local community. So what we're focusing on is making sure that we maximise every minute of the preparation we can, be that remotely, work from home, and then when we get into the club.
So let me break it down and you can tell me if it's been answered or if I'm veering off. But it's not, and I would assume you've spoken to coaches today, players, that's all been addressed and everyone's been dealt with in an appropriate manner. Jordan has spoken to players and coaches. Jordan is not somebody who was coaching an element of the team.
So each of the coaches has their portfolio, if you like, of how we coach, and then we have an integrated coaching team. Then how we work that with regards to the different off-field matters to ensure that we get the performance of the team that we want, and how we integrate the whole support staff around the team to help the team's performance is key. Now, there has been change in the coaching team. Boris decided he wanted to step away from coaching. Rob decided that he needed to return home for personal reasons, return back to New Zealand. At the same time, we've had coaches through the Leicester Tigers Academy been with the first team the whole time. So Matt Smith, Tom Harrison. So those coaches have always been ready and building towards understanding the systems, understanding what we wanted to do, and developing their own coaching. So as ever, and this is what professional sports, when you're managing professional sports, you need to be, is there needs to be succession planning, and there needs to be people that can step in at short notice. There always needs to be those things, and we always need contingency plans in place, and that's what we have, and that's what we move to when we need to.
So I'll come back to the other coaches in a minute, because when we do take a little bit of a look ahead, that's obviously something people want to know about. But if I come back to you, Peter, you mentioned there, obviously we want to farewell Jordan properly and without, I guess, undermining anyone else's contribution. This is a guy who probably deserves as big a farewell as anyone's going to get from Leicester Tigers, if and when it's safe to do so.
No, without a doubt. I mean, we've been, I mean, Jordan's contribution has been amazing, but we've been blessed, with Dean Richards, Martin Johnson, Neil Back, a whole host of people. And we've always, honoured them, I think, in the right way. And, we will make sure when we do get back to having full stadiums that, we honour Jordan in the way that's appropriate for everything that he's contributed for us.
So let's, Andrea, if I can, and I appreciate it's a pretty blunt question, but people obviously want to understand, one, the decision to be made that the contract wasn't to be renewed, and also the process and how effectively a decision's been made at this time, 1 week out from a season, that a director of rugby will leave the club.
Yeah, I think the timing of the decision or the announcement is not perfect, and let's not shy away from that. One of the things that I said right at the outset when I was promoted to CEO was that this era now is about transparency. We want everybody to hear the news from us, be it good or bad. We have to own that news, and we have to tell our supporters what they want to know as much as we can. So for me, when Jordan's contract, well publicised, was up at the end of this season, this coming season, and he approached me because he wanted to have that discussion and everything finalised very early on and before Christmas. So within those discussions and me having that conversation with him, he is owed a huge debt of gratitude by Leicester Tigers, by this club, and therefore when the decision was made that we wouldn't be offering him a new contract as Director of Rugby, that it needed to be done in the right way, needed to be done face to face, and it needed to be done with all due consideration as to whether he wanted to stay for the next 8 months and see his contract out, or whether he wanted to move on straight away. And his choice was to move on straight away, and that's something that we agreed and honoured. So this has been done. This is a very emotional time, of course, for Jordan, but for everybody else associated with the club as well. But it needs to be done in the right way, managed in the right way, and also done with all the due respect that he deserves.
So that's a decision the board makes, if I'm correct, as a whole. Now, Peter, I'll put the pressure on you. It may be that you want to say that it's private and it's something you've chatted with Jordan about, and that's fine. I appreciate that, and I'm sure people will. But is there any way you can explain, or anything you can allude to at least, around why the contract wasn't renewed for Jordan?
Well, I think the situation was that what we needed, and we, if you remember, started looking at what was going wrong with the club 2+ years ago. We got Paddy Howard in to do his review, and whilst there would have been an opportunity for something for Jordan, it wasn't what he would necessarily have wanted, and that we don't see a role going forward for a Director of Rugby as such. And that was, and I think the fact, as sad and perhaps unfortunate timing, it's much better that these things are dealt with, quickly, properly. We've all agreed with Jordan what's happening, and it isn't, leaks in the media and dripping away of this, that, and the other. And so I feel, despite feeling quite upset that Jordan's leaving, I have no doubt that we've dealt with it absolutely in the right way, and in a way that honours the contribution that Geordie's made to the club.
So if you can put to bed something for me, and again, privacy aside, obviously Rory Underwood left the board 24 hours ago. Let's just be blunt. Did he leave the board because of the Jordan Murphy situation?
No, he didn't. No, it had nothing whatsoever to do with it.
And that's for others to assume for now, but yeah.
No, absolutely, Sammy, nothing at all. He's been on the board for 13 years. And you've seen part of the review that I alluded to earlier of Pat Howard's was to address the board. And, he'd been on the board for 13 years, and it was the right time for him to step down, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with the Jordan decision.
Steve, you said as well, obviously preparations are not ideal. Anyone can see that from any outset. I think I would imagine every head coach in any club would say 3 weeks is not ideal, even if you didn't have an outbreak. Does this have an impact on your preparation this week? Did it mean you had to cancel anything that was planned for today? I mean, if you can shed some light on how it, I guess, impacts that direct day-to-day program that's in place leading up to Gloucester.
So the situation was that last week, when the positive test was detected and the medical team acted incredibly swiftly and immediately isolated and immediately said we can't train, and Oval Park, the decision was made not to be training as a team and out of Oval Park for that. we immediately started putting in place individual training plans for all the players with the constraints and safety and every measure that we could put in place. And then we ensured that we look at maximising the off-field learning that we can do. And that programme has continued and will continue until we can get straight back into Oval Park and start training together again as a team. I think one of the things, and we've stressed this as a team, and the players, in something we've been doing the last few days, the players came back and talked about successful teams and ensuring that whilst preparations aren't ideal, we need to adapt and overcome. And we need to make sure that we put on the best performance we possibly can next Saturday. And then we need to learn and get put on the best performance we can the following week, and then learn the best performance we possibly can, and ensure from all the experiences we learn, but being very clear, we make sure we adapt to whatever challenges are put in front of us and come out of things stronger.
And my understanding is there'll be testing on Monday, and then from that testing, obviously, if somebody is positive, they will go through the normal process, game aside, but anyone who's negative will be able to return on Tuesday, and there'll obviously be measures in place in terms of making sure all social distancing and everything's in place too.
Yep, and I think credit Simon Wallace, Harsh and Aled Walters especially for the work they have been doing to ensure that we maintain the health, well-being of the players, the staff, the families and the community around us that we care so much for. Now, we want to ensure we squeeze every minute out of training we possibly can, and I know that the players have been doing that diligently on their own in the isolated circumstances we can. Testing will be on Monday. We'll get the results on Tuesday morning, and we've got plans drawn up, as I alluded to earlier, as I talked about, that there's always a plan A, and there's always a plan B, and there's a plan C. So we know what we need to do as soon as we know the situation. We've got plans prepared, and then if something comes up that we haven't necessarily got a plan for, we adapt. And I feel very privileged to work with some excellent people. I mentioned a few of them already. We've got Andrea, CEO, and incredibly supportive chairman in Peter, who anything we need to do, we adapt and ensure we overcome.
And if I could just follow on, Sammy, Hadj, our doctor, and Simon Wallace have just been outstanding in this, and the way in which it's been dealt with from, Public Health England, and ensuring that, the health and well-being of people's families and all those things. They've just been outstanding. And I've been very proud of the way in which, what was a situation we'd obviously preferred not to be, the way in which it's been dealt with.
Steve, I appreciate you're in front of your two bosses, so this is a bit of a difficult question at times. But let's be honest, people may suggest that we might turn around in a week and use this as an excuse to not be prepared, not be ready. Is that at all? And I appreciate I know the answer, but just to put the question to you so that it can be pretty cleared up, is this something that, you are saying to them? I know you're saying adapt, I know you're saying learn quickly, take every minute out of everything, but is there something where you go, look, we haven't had the best preparation, guys, or is this a real, no, there's no excuses?
I think it's very clearly choosing how you react to things. And that is a very deliberate choice. So what can we control? Let's make sure we control it as much as we possibly can. What can we influence? Let's influence it as much as we possibly can. We've got nothing that if we can't control something, but it has influence over us, then let's choose how we react to it. So, and that's been a very clear thing. Choose how we react and ensure that we maximise everything we can do. And a lot of talk is about what you can't do. And I'm really respectful. This has been a really challenging time for people all around the world. And I know that the community in Leicestershire has had a particularly tough time. But you see all the time, people that are working through as well as the possible can. We're trying to do the same. We're trying to make sure that we use this time as well as we can and come out of it stronger than ever.
Andrea, Peter obviously said there around the review and the decision's been made around not having a director of rugby. Now, in the statement today, it says that the club will not be recruiting to replace a director of rugby, but you are going to commence a process for, well, I guess you can say now, is it a new role at the club?
Yeah, so, it's been very clear that, Steve is managing all things Onfield, if you like, on the pitch, and there's a very clear strategy, there's a very clear vision, there's very clear expectations, and the progress can be seen. We need that to be in place off field, so there will be somebody that we'll recruit to come in to do that. What we're looking for is to build into the wider club vision and have a 3 to 5 year rolling strategy for the rugby side of the club, of the business, that is very clear for all. Everyone understands their part of it, the expectations and the accountability, and delivers to that. Like Steve said, this is such a challenging time for everybody globally, but for us in this club, it does seem we've got some relatively junior people in regards to the length of time in their service, with me being one, you know, in my current role, and we're having all kinds of things thrown at us. And as Steve said, it's how you choose to react. And all of this is a huge learning for the players, for the staff. And you see the players, now I see it very clearly as the players under Steve are going to absolutely thrive. And this is all about progression. It's really sad that we can't bring everybody with us, but there will be, you know, and that there is the progression in the club and a plan to ensure that that continues and is sustainable. This isn't about just trying to achieve a goal in one particular year and then see what happens after that. This is about sustainable success for the future of Leicester Tigers.
And who contributes to creating what is a strategic vision off the pitch? Who contributes to saying this is the plan? And as you say, it's not a, right, we're going to be in this position on this day and after this round, we're going to have this many trophies. I get that, but you can understand people's questions around who's contributing to that, who's creating this vision.
Sure. So it's led by the board as to where the club and the expectations for the club is over a 3 to 5 year period, and then that is filtered down throughout all departments. You know, we'll look at Steve very much and say, what do you need to be successful on the pitch? How much is that going to cost? And then the commercial side come in and have to deliver that money. But off the field, from the rugby element, you know, what we want to do is have this depth chart of what players do we want to target? Who in 3 years' time do we want to be a Leicester Tiger? And who from our academy and our development and our younger players coming through, how are we going to develop them so that they're absolutely ready to hit the ground running and join the first team? So, you know, there's a whole piece around the players that we've got, working with them, making sure that we can give them every opportunity to deliver their best. And that's what Steve's doing on the pitch, and we need somebody to do that off the pitch as well. So
let's look at the last month in particular, and you've got, and I'll talk to Steve and I'll ask Steve in a second, but if it's on just for you for a second, Andrea, is obviously there's been 3 coaches and a board member, I mean, in less than a month have gone.
Yeah.
That's not ideal. You've accepted that. That's fine. Yep. In recent months, 20 odd players left now. Okay, that is a pretty consistent thing in recent years. And that's something, as you're saying, you don't want to be consistent over time. But you've got 3 board member changes prior to that. You've had a CEO change, just to really make it awkward for you, answering a question about yourself. But you can understand people saying it seems like a lot's changing. So when you say there's a vision, is it all of this part of that, from the very first board member to leave to a CEO, or do these things come up and unfortunately timing is never beautiful, is it?
Oh, look,
sorry, Andrea. I think in a way, Sammy, you know, what you have to do is learn from your mistakes. And I think, you know, as we looked back from where we were to where we got to, it was obvious that we needed to make change. And we got Pat in and he did his review. We'd had a lot of people who'd been on the board for a long time. And, it was, you know, the board changes, I think, you know, Pinchen Kennedy has been outstanding as finance director and given hours and hours of his time and producing all the numbers on time. And, you know, this is all part of, whilst it may seem, and there'll be journalists who'll say it's chaos, or this is all part of a plan that we set out probably a year or so ago to get to where we are whilst this has been a difficult week, not helped by the virus, and then, sadly, Rory and Geordie leaving, but we're in a better position today than we were when we had our first LTTV interview back in March or whenever it was. So, the board changes. Boards are, meant to change on a regular basis, and we've got a very, very supportive board. And again, a lot of work's gone on at capital work, construction work at Oval Park to improve the facilities there. And I haven't actually. I've seen Danny Mulligan, who heads up the firm that did them, sent me some pictures of what they did at Oval Park, and now again what's been done at Welford Road. So, we've used this time to get ourselves into a position to get back to where Leicester should be, which is at the top. And as you know, I've had two very, very clear objectives. One was to ensure that we're financially viable and survive, which we will, no doubt about that. And secondly, or it could be first, whichever way you want to put it, that we get back to the top, and I have no doubt we're going to get back to the top as well.
So,
go
ahead.
No, just from a timing perspective, I don't. You tell me any situation, whether it's business, whether it's personal in the world, where everything goes according to clockwork, according to your plan, and all your timings fit in nicely. That's not real life. It'd be great if it did, if it happened like that, and they'd be very clear, and the steps would be taken at the appropriate time. Life isn't like that, and it is how you adapt and progress. As Peter said, if I didn't believe we were in a stronger position now with a very clear objective of where we're going to moving forward, then you would need to question what we're doing. I absolutely believe with the plan that we have in place and the people that we have, strength that we will bring in, that this is us moving forward and making the progress that we need to make.
So I asked the question of Steve. If I asked the question of you, Peter, to put the pressure on you because they're also on the call, is the board, and I appreciate Andrea, you're on the board, but is the board, Peter, confident that this is the right move? Because what we're saying, tell me if I'm wrong, what we're saying is 7 days ago, we didn't anticipate Rory and Jordan leaving the club from this time today. Or even a month ago, we didn't necessarily predict that Rob and Boris would be leaving. And I'll ask Steve about that in a second. But are you confident that today, when the dust has settled, that things are still moving forward?
No, absolutely. And we were constantly reviewing the board, and the board would always be evolving. So whilst well, I'm not sure it's unfortunate, the fact that the two appear to be together is just purely a matter of timing, and they have nothing to do with each other at all. And I think as far as the Jordan situation, whilst is very, very sad, and for the massive contribution he's made to the club, to my mind, it's a kind of resolution to that position by dealing with it now than leaving it hanging out there over the next few months and speculation in the media and things like that. So, I think, I'm very, very fortunate. We've got a very supportive board, and we're meeting probably on Zoom 2 or 3 times a week and things like that. An awful lot going on with Premier Rugby and what's happening to the game generally, which I'm there trying to ensure that whatever the results of those things are, they're in the best interest of Leicester Tigers. So, and I don't think anybody could have envisaged, the situation that we've had, and the whole COVID thing has meant that people aren't able to meet their relatives. I fully understand, Rob finding it very difficult here and wanted to go, people stuck in apartments on their own. And I think probably from a one of the things that we are doing, which is very important as well, we are trying to make sure that there's support from a mental point of view for everybody, because these are, to be, if you're a young man and you're not able to play and you're stuck in a flat somewhere, and so I think we're dealing with a whole completely set of different circumstances, and I feel very confident that we've dealt with all this in the right way, and obviously ultimately what happens when we get out on the pitch will show that. But again, the fact that our season ticket support from our season ticket holders has just been outstanding. The fact that we've continued to get extra sponsors, the East Midlands has really come up trumps in terms of its support of us and things like that. So and again, there's only too well, Sammy, Steve and Andrea, the effort that our colleagues in all the different roles that they're doing are putting in, and the hours and the inconvenience of times of trying to work at home, with 3 children around your feet and a couple of dogs and stuff like that. So for me, it's a sad week, obviously, but I'm very, very proud of what we've achieved so far, and I have no doubt, as I said earlier in this interview, that we're going to be back at the top.
So there is some rugby to come as well. Let's not forget what we do. Not necessarily 3 or 4 of us on this call, because I certainly don't do any rugby. But Steve, let's talk about the coaches, because you have lost 2 coaches. Is there any update for fans you can give in terms of replacements? Are they going to be replacements? Are they not? I know there isn't necessarily any scrum coaching going on at the moment, given an outbreak, but I'm assuming Dan Cole's pushing himself against a tree somewhere in his backyard. But in terms of actually an update for supporters, if you can, on those 2 appointments.
Yeah, Dan's not pushing it against a tree. He's driving a car, pushing from behind a car up a hill each day. I think that's what he's doing to train his squad. I think they all are doing that. So, yeah, mentioned earlier that Boris decided to take a step away from full-time coaching for a while, and Rob decided to return home for personal reasons. Now, that's mean that we've had coaches from within the club that have been part of the first team throughout step forward. Now, are we actively searching? Are we actively looking for the highest quality coaching additions? Yes, we are. Are we going to rush appointments? No. We're going to ensure that we get the right appointments, because every decision we make for this club has got to take us forward in the direction we're going. Now, so what we've got here so far is Matt Smith, who has played his whole career here at Leicester Tigers, and he's an incredibly exciting young coach. He's stepping forward. He's been around the first team and assisting with the first team throughout since I arrived in July the 1st. Tom Harrison been doing the same from a forwards perspective. He's been assisting with the first team since I arrived in July the 1st. So they both know exactly what we're trying to do. And I think it's exciting in that whilst during the post-lockdown period, we started 14 players played their first games for Leicester Tigers. And at this point in time, as we sit here right now, we're still going to have Jasper Wiese to play his first game for Leicester Tigers. Kyle Brink, full training now, and going to play his first game. Richard Wigglesworth is going to play his first game. Lorne De Bruyne is going to play his first game. Tace Maroney is going to play his first game. Tito Benizia going to play his first game. So you see here straight away, we've got those names I just mentioned, high quality players that are going to add into our team. And then you said, yes, we've had these excellent players, some of them young, some of them experienced, played their first games for Leicester Tigers. They're going to have more experience playing together. We're going to build those relationships between the players in the team with the coaches. And we've been trying to think of different ways we can do that whilst isolated in our own homes over this last period of time. So in terms of next steps, I think there's some really exciting next steps for us. I'm excited seeing these coaches coach. I'm excited these players that are joining us.
So changes aside to the coaching team, even the playing roster, are you happy with where the squad is, where the team is? on the pitch in preparation for this season where, I guess, as opposed to where you would have wanted it to be when you did start on July 1st?
At some point, you're going to do an interview with me and you're not going to use the words happy and comfortable. I told you, they're not good words of coaches. As a coach, you're rarely happy and you're rarely comfortable because they're pretty dangerous positions to be in. You're always wanting more. Always, it's the nature of coaching. You're trying to squeeze every bit. So it doesn't matter how much time you've got, whether you've got a 1 week preparation going into a test match when you're coaching an international team, or you've got a 6 week pre-season or a 3 week pre-season, and then 2 weeks of it you're locked out your training ground. It doesn't matter. There's never enough time because you're always wanting more. But what you do is you ensure you maximise every bit you possibly can, and that's what we're doing. So I sit here thinking, are we maximising everything we can do? Well, I'm asking that question every day. I'm asking the question, what more can we do? How can we find another way to strengthen our team? How can we find another way to help our players? How can we find another way to improve our coaching? That's what I'm doing every single day. So I think we're pushing in the right direction. But yeah, happy. It should ban those words. Happy, comfortable.
You shouldn't tell me what not to say because you know that means I will say it. But so tell me, Steve, and okay, let's be totally upfront with people. We've had this conversation before, you and I, but what is success this season for Leicester Tigers? Because Andrew and Peter are talking about a vision. There is a clear, as we're saying, there's not necessarily maybe a position or a trophy you're chasing. That's fine. But what actually is success this season that's about to commence?
I think Leicester Tigers, this is often described as being a huge club, and it is a huge club. And I think what we've seen in recent seasons is that it's a huge club that performance-wise has been heading in the wrong direction. Now, when you've got something that size, the big oil tanker, and you're trying to turn it, so it takes some time to turn that around. Now, so where are we? Are we turning? Yeah, I think we're turning. Are we exactly where we need to go? I think we're heading that way. But one thing I'm very, very clear of is we've stopped heading in the wrong direction, and we're coming back around now. Without trying to labour that, I think we are heading in the right direction. We need progress, and we need progress every week. Now, if I give you a target, then that potentially puts a limit on us, and I'm not prepared to put a limit on us. And so what I will see is that we have progress. We have progress in the way we play, and then in each week, from week to week, we see progress. Now I'm saying to each of the players, we all need to find improvement. The coaches, we all need to find improvement. And if we get cumulative, we all get a few percent improvement in what we do, then we bring that together with the relationships I talked about earlier, which when you're building a new team and bringing this number of new players together, that's a great challenge. But I say again, it's a challenge that excites me. It's a challenge that I'm certainly eager to continue, and will be eager to get back into the training ground.
I'm not going to lie. I thought you were talking about Namani when you're talking about an oil tanker, and I'm risking my life saying that, but that's fine. So how much better? And okay, it wasn't a free hit, and I'm using a phrase that you won't like. The end of last season wasn't a free hit for the club. You can say it was in some terms, but you went out to win every game. I don't want to go into that, but how much better is the squad, given that so many guys got a chance to play not only for Leicester Tigers, so your Namanis, Kinneys, Zach Henrys, but your younger guys also, and I'm just picking Dan Kelly, Chesham, Henderson. They got an opportunity to play senior rugby alongside experienced players, but also against top quality individuals.
Those experiences are going to be really positive experiences for the team going forward. Why? Because it makes sure we capture the learnings from them. And any young rugby player has had, that becomes a good rugby player and is older, has had experiences that they would rather forget. Some tough days on the field now. But those are where you find out about yourself. Those are where you find out about what you've got to do to improve. And we've had some of those experiences, and we made sure we capture those learnings. We've seen progress in certain areas. Do we see as much progress as I wanted? No, because it's never as much progress as I want. I always want more. That's the nature of coaching. You always want to try and find that bit more. So will it be a positive experience for us going forward? Certainly. And you're 100% right. I don't like the phrase you used.
How many of your tough days as a player did you have against Leicester Tigers?
Hey, plenty. And that is one of the great exciting things about this place. I can't wait for the day when we have our supporters back inside our ground, inside our stadium. I can't wait for our players. Some have yet to have experienced going out to the roar of the Leicester Tigers support. Now, I know sometimes, probably because we're all sat at home behind computers on Zoom as we are right now, is that it feels a bit distant. It feels like you can't touch the team as much as you were when you stood on the terrace there by the side of the field, and the players are walking out down the steps onto the field, right shoulder to shoulder with you. I understand that there's that feeling of distance. What I'll say is that the players understand that the supporters are there, and they understand that the supporters are desperately passionate for this team to do well. And I promise the supporters that we talk about our support daily. Daily, we talk about what we want to deliver for our supporters, and how proud we are of being involved with this rugby club.
How many debutants will Tigers see against Gloucester? Or are you not prepared to answer that question right now?
What do you think? Am I prepared to answer that question?
Fair enough. I knew what I was asking. Andrea, Peter, it's a question for both of you. I'll let you decide who answers first. People have accused, again, this might be a little bit blunt. Tell me if I'm going too far. But people have accused the board of maybe getting in the way, maybe having too heavy a hand on the rugby program. What I've taken from tonight in particular, and obviously other conversations, is that Steve is in charge of the Onfield program. Do you feel like the board was or is doing what people have accused it of?
I think what our job is to ensure that, we're financially viable, and to try and ensure that we're able to give Steve and the playing side whatever they need. And then, I think what I thought we did make progress in that period of I thought we looked a lot fitter, and we were playing right to the end, and so I thought we had made progress. But I think, for us to sit here now in November, and we haven't played a game at Welford Road since, I don't know, February or something. We haven't lost a sponsor. We've added sponsors, and the support that we've had. I've been doing, academy vice presidents. I've been doing corporate Zooms. The support is just absolutely and utterly outstanding. And I think when we asked our supporters to get in touch with their local MPs to help us prepare the package for the request for help from the government, was just outstanding. And MPs in Norfolk were being contacted by Tigers supporters and explaining the situation. And I think, again, for us, what has been, and probably for me, and I'm sure for Andrea and other members of the board, the most humble bit of it is how important we are how important, not us, but Tigers are to the local community. And I'm embarrassed to say, to a degree, that there were some things we were doing that I wasn't even aware we were doing. So I think the way in which the East Midlands has come together, the support we've had from, Sir Peter Salisbury, the mayor, the universities, all the different businesses, has just been outstanding. And we owe them a huge debt of gratitude, but we owe them something where we get Leicester back towards the top again.
From your perspective, Andrea, I mean, I guess just the same question, really. Do you at least, not to be blunt again, but do you at least appreciate why people, even when decisions like today come out or whatever you want, people do take that perception, do take that mindset?
Yeah, I think so. So certainly, perhaps in the past, I'm a firm believer and have been all through my career, and my career at Leicester Tigers. So when I was in the ticket office, if I wasn't the expert in day one in selling tickets, I'm not going to be the one that tries to tell somebody how to do it. You know, you let the expert shine, because that's what you're employing them to do. The only way that we're going to be successful moving forward is having all the skill set from our board members helping us drive that strategy piece moving forward. And then each department who've got its own head and area of expertise and experts working there, people in the ticket office who are answering the phones every day know a lot more about what's going on if we want to make a decision than me. So why would I make that without their input? So for me, it's letting everybody who is an expert in their field thrive, and ensuring that we're there to support and encourage that, and also to give the time for that success to happen.
Steve, let's finish on rugby. And if there's anything else anyone wants to say, we can touch on it. But let's finish on rugby and take me 7-8 days into the future. A bit like we said earlier, let's count it in hours, because it seems a lot longer than single figure days or 1 week. What can Tigers fans expect from the Tigers team that takes on Gloucester in round 1 of this season?
Sam, I think it's important, actually. I think that previous question you asked, if I talk about my personal experience since I joined here on July the 1st, I experienced nothing but absolute support from everybody involved at Leicester Tigers, and it's been challenging, because the board members as well as supporters, and they're deeply passionate and want to be at the stadium watching the games and cheering us on, and that I would dearly love that. I felt nothing but support what we need to do here. Now, it is right that it's right that I'm questioned about the approach we're taking. I'm questioned about what we're trying to do, and I have to support what we're trying to do and evidence what we're trying to do and understand. And that is absolutely right. And I think nobody would expect it to be any. And it's going to keep slipping down, Sam.
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
But I think everyone is very realistic about where we are and what we need to do. Now, what we've done, and Peter, our chairman, talked there about some of the progress we've made and the evidence of some of the progress made. Now, what we need to do, we were described very clearly as a team that went away, a team that faded in the second half, a team that didn't keep fighting. Now, quite clearly, I talk to the players a lot about ensuring we are a team that our supporters can be proud of by the commitment that we show. Now, do we want to simply compete? No, we want to win. Like, we don't simply want to just be there on the field and put on a good show. We want to actually win. So each experience we have is about learning to ensure we manage to get ourselves into winning positions and then convert those winning positions. Each player we sign is to sign to help us be able to become a winning team again. And that is what we're aiming towards. And I'm very clear we have high aspirations. Do we think we're going to turn this big oil tanker overnight? No. But every single day, do we keep plugging away? Every single day, do we keep making a bit of progress? Absolutely. And that's the exciting thing. You come in each day, make another bit of progress. Even here on the Zoom calls with the players, the coaches, can we make some more progress? How do we push a bit harder? How do we find another edge?
So, Andrea, if I'll ask you then, I admit I did say I wasn't going to ask another question, but it brings a point up that there was a well-publicised rugby committee that was a part of the Tigers board. Now, if I take my last question and put it into this one, Rory Underwood was part of that. That was publicised. Does a rugby committee still exist on the Tigers board that oversees Steve and the rugby operations?
No.
No, it doesn't exist.
No.
Right. So let's clear that up for anyone, because I've seen it asked. So, look, I think we've probably touched on everything we need to touch on. I appreciate that it is Friday evening and you've come online after what's been a long day, a long few days. I hope everyone appreciates that, and hopefully now we can actually start to look towards the season, and then the boys come in on Monday, get tested, and there can be a scrum session so that Coley can leave his car alone. But I do appreciate you all coming along and having a chat. And I appreciate that you've answered questions that, quite frankly, you could have told me to go away and not ask. So thank you for that. And hopefully thank you from fans for doing so. If there is anything else you want to add, now's the time.
Sam, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for all the support. And I understand that people will be worried and a bit, concerned about this, but, we're absolutely determined to take the club back to where we should be. And, whilst we do get a fair bit of stick on social media, also we do get some, some support from people, which is very moving as well. And for me, I can't thank enough the people that support the Tigers.
Lovely. Nice way to finish. So no one else can say anything now. Don't say any more words. No one. Anyway, everyone go and enjoy a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Whatever it is you're doing. And again, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much. See you all soon.